this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
5 receivers at Duncan's disposal. Duncan stepping up. Hit! Ball is loose!
Big call here.
Marshall thinks they have it, and the Herd do!
Here's the kickoff from Amaretto Curry to the Hilltoppers, and we are underway, and a fake reverse on the kick return. And here comes Townsend down the left sideline. What a way to start it for Western Kentucky on the road, and it is an opening touchdown return, and just like that, the Hilltoppers strike first.
Justin Rohrwasser to try to win it for Marshall from 53 yards out. It's got the leg. It is good! And the perfect season continues for Justin Rohrwasser.
Goes for 2. Going for the win. Western Kentucky going for the victory. Rolling to his right, quick strike, and they did it! Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia, and it is over for Marshall. They end the regular season 11-1.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. It is game week, believe it or not. As we record right now, I was sitting down earlier this evening. It's Saturday, by the way, and I was watching some games. And Hilltoppers are set to kick off the season this coming Thursday, September the 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central on ESPN Plus against UT Martin. And we're going to preview that game here in a little bit. But before we do that, Stephen and I are going to talk about the season expectations, season predictions, whatever you want to call it. You know, if you've been with us, you've listen to us talk about each individual position group and who's back and what's new and, you know, kind of what we think will happen with individual guys and units as a whole. But, you know, now we're going to tie it all together really. And I should mention, we've been putting out so much content that if you happen to get behind on the position group breakdowns and, you know, you went back to check Spotify or whatever, and one of those episodes was gone, every episode that we have is cataloged on the Moonshine Throwdown podcast YouTube channel. So all you got to do, if you're not subscribed to the channel, you just should be, because you'll find all the old episodes there. If you missed something, you want to go back and listen to something again to see exactly how wrong we were when we talked about it, then it's always there on the YouTube channel. So just food for thought. If you miss something, it's always there. You know, we can only keep so much content active before the older stuff gets booted away for the newer stuff that gets posted. But it's all over there on the YouTube channel. So Steve's with me. Let's talk about the season predictions for 2021. Right off the rip, we got to talk about, got a very mixed bag as far as the out of conference goes. I've got to lean towards it being on the tougher side than more so the easy side. Yeah, you've got a game that we open Thursday night against UT Martin that you'd like to pencil in as a win. But before we just get so gung-ho and do that, we just know how much those opening games against FCS teams have been a bugaboo for the Tops in recent history. And it's not that we're poking fun or trying to bring up old news. It just has. And until that trend gets reversed, it's a point of conversation. And then we talk about going up to West Point to play Army on September 11th of all weekends. That's got to have some extra juice for Army. Not the ideal opponent you want to have in that particular weekend. You get a bye week, and then it's a couple of Big Ten teams. An Indiana team who was really good last year is probably going to be pretty solid this year. But if the Tops put it together and, you know, start to find a rhythm, that game's at home. That's at BGKY. So that's a game that could absolutely go in favor of the Hilltoppers. Expect a big show-out crowd. And then you got Michigan State that you got to travel to close out the out-of-conference schedule. So, you know, we'll let's talk about some of these overall expectations, Steve. We've talked about the units. We've talked about who we think is going to be good. We talked about who we think is going to burst on the scene, who's going to make national pub, and guys that are going to make waves within the conference. I'm just going to throw it to you. What are your overall expectations for the season? And like I told you before we started recording, I don't really have any criteria to qualify that statement with. So, you're going to have to kind of offer me what you think is the best type of data to talk about when you talk about expectations. So what are your overall expectations for the season?
Well, you hit it right on the head talking about the the FCS struggles, and not, don't just pencil it in as a W, as much as you want to, because 2018 Maine 28-31 loss, 2019 Central Arkansas 35-28 loss. Last year UT Chattanooga, called back could have been walk-off, kick return for a touchdown basically. We won that game 13-10, but it was by the fair catch of our teeth.
Yeah.
Touche.
Yeah.
I really think this season, with so many new pieces being added, and there's just going to be a lot of bodies moving in and out of the game just because of the tempo that I expect us to play with. We've talked about, there's some good pieces coming back, but there's kind of a youth movement across both sides of the ball as far as the offensive line, the defense kind of have a changing of the guard. So some people are going to be cutting their teeth with the lights on, and that non-conference schedule does no favors. It's really going to kind of be the tale of two seasons, in my opinion. What you get per se in those first 4 games might not be exactly what happens the rest of the season. I think that's going to kind of be the putting it together, figuring it out, figuring out who you can rely on, lean on, hopefully coming out of those games healthy, and then turning it on when conference season starts, because that's really going to be when it matters. Obviously, we would love to sneak up and get a couple wins against some of the opponents that we have in non-conference. But at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to the conference schedule and winning those games against people that we have to, and trying to win a conference championship. But I do expect, I've said it several times, leading to position groups, talking about quarterback, offense, wide receivers, just all the weapons. I think this year, the FCS opponent, I think, unfortunately, they're just in a bad position for what they're walking into. I've drawn this parallel before, but I really think it's going to be, 2016 Mike White versus Rice in the opening game, threw for 500 yards, or maybe not 500 yards, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, just something ridiculous for his debut game. That shiny new toy that we just had to show off. Hey, look, we got here in the garage. It's been parked. We took the drape off of it, and it's pretty nice. It can run. We've got a gunslinger. We've got somebody that can pull the trigger, and we've got a lot of guys out there that can go make plays. So I really do expect a lot of excitement just straight out of the gate in that opening game. I don't think that means, hey, we're steamrolling everybody. But I think there's going to be an expectation and a bar set that first game, in a game that we should win, can win, especially the team and the staff and the players knowing the last few years of struggles. There's a little bit of a chip there, and a little bit of, hey, we're about to blow somebody out. It's been a while. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, just in broad generalities with our schedule and that non-conference, especially looking at it first.
There's been so many people that have been talking about Western Kentucky as being this sneak up team, that now they're really not a sneak up team anymore. Even despite not playing a game, it's been the popular thing to say about Western Kentucky. Oh, they're going to be sneaky good. Look out for them. They could really upset some people this year, and now it's kind of the thing. So you're expecting to see that happen. And on top of what you just said, you talked about Central Arkansas, you talked about Maine, and the fair catch thing is just still one of the most wild, just heart-wrenching plays to have called back. But I saw the video, you saw the video. It's just one of those calls, right? Did the guy make a legit fair catch? He wasn't even the receiver. So, you get that argument too, but hey, it's a referee's call and he called it immediately. It wasn't one of those late call things, but still, what a heartbreaking type deal. But look, Tyson Helton has had bad luck with FCS opponents in openers. And if we've got all this, Western's going to be sneaky good kind of talk, you can't go out and be average against a team that you should absolutely dominate. You can't do it. The difference for me when we talk about quarterbacks, and you talk about Mike White coming in and, he had this shiny toy and you wanted to show him off. And we talk about Bailey Zappi this year. The difference to me is Mike White came over from USF with virtually no real statistics, to make you perk up and go, wow, okay, Western really got him one here. He came essentially out of nowhere to dominate the league. And Zappi comes over with a ton of accomplishment already. So there's a little bit of, I'm going to say, added pressure that it has to work. That necessarily what if Mike White comes over and doesn't blow it out against Rice, nobody's going to be like, okay, well, they got some time to figure it out. But he did. And he turned out to just continue doing that over and over and over and week in and week out. But Zappi doesn't have that luxury. He's got to come in and be good from the get-go because of all this. We're guilty of it too. 10,000 passing yards, and the tops are transferring in over 5,000 career receiving yards, transferring in. Not to mention the guys that are already there, like Tinsley and Burt and Joshua Simon. All the pieces have to be there, and you can't come out and lay an egg against UT Martin. So this really depends on if you're a glass half full or glass half empty type fan. If you come out of the out of conference 0-4 or 1-3, and you're a glass half empty type fan, you're going to go, this experiment's not working. When does basketball season start? Right? It's going to be freaking not even October or barely into October. And you're like, God, is it basketball season? Isn't it? You're going to be that fan. But if you're a glass half full fan and you say, all right, we're 1-3, but we're battle tested now. We're ready to run roughshod through Conference USA. We know what we've got and we know how we match up. And there's nobody on the schedule that's going to be as good as Indiana or that's good as Michigan State from here forth. No matter what you think about, FAU or Marshall or the usual suspects in the East, even UTSA's on the schedule. If you're a glass half full fan, you're thinking nobody we're going to play is going to be better than Indiana or Michigan State from here on out. So ask yourself now before the season starts, am I a half full fan or a half empty fan? This is going to go a long way with your attitude if things go a little shaky from the get-go. But Steve, let's talk about a little bit more about the best case and worst case scenario. You've got the schedule in front of you. I'm sure if you just glance down it, and I'm sure you have many times, and you probably have this idea in your head already. If it doesn't quite work out as well as we think it should, for whatever reason, and let's just give the caveat that everyone stays healthy, which we know is not going to happen. But let's just say everyone stays relatively healthy. Nobody misses like half the season. None of those impact guys miss a lot of time. What's the best case and worst case scenario that you think for this team in 2021?
And I'm going to give these with the caveat of this is probably going to be open to change as we see that puzzle coming together in those first 4 games.
Of course.
What I have penciled in right now, I have us splitting the non-conference. I have us beating UT Martin. I have us beating Army. And then I have us losing both Indiana and Michigan State. Now, I think it's hard to say, especially with Indiana having continuity and us just having so many new pieces. I'd love to say, hey, we can steal it. We could, absolutely could. But they're even if you don't like preseason rankings, et cetera, they've proven kind of their ability. So I have a hard time penciling in a win there. I'd love to see it. It could very well happen. It would take, one of our best efforts that we put together in several years. And it would take just Zappi just playing out of his mind and offensive coordinator Kitley just pitching basically a perfect game from the press box for the offensive side. And then the defense would obviously have to hold a 3-2. So, but just big picture, best case scenario, and I just did quick pencil in, and you've talked about all these coin flip games. I mean, so many of those are just you don't know. It could go either way. I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be 55-45 type power index games. Either way. in the big chunk of the season. The middle of that schedule is just coin flip, coin flip, coin flip, coin
Yep.
flip. My best case scenario is 9-3. That's my best case scenario. My worst case scenario is 6-6. That's if we lose more of those coin flips than we win. I think 6-6 is the basement, and I think 9-3 is the ceiling, and that could change depending on how quick the puzzle comes together, and if we knock off a bigger name that maybe we shouldn't. If we knock off a bigger name in that non-con, that could be a higher ceiling. But I think realistically, I think 9-3 is very. I mean, it's a big goal. It's a big ask. I think it's attainable though. It's not impossible. And Bailey Zappi, the guy with the trigger, says, "Hey, 12-0, baby, let's go." If I want to quote him, it's 12-0. But I think 9-3 is fair to be optimistic and say, "Hey, everything goes right, and we click, and everybody stays healthy." Could happen. But then you're going to lose some heartbreakers. New pieces, mistakes are going to happen. People are going to get hurt. Fair catches aren't going to get called back. We could go 6-6 very easily, but I think we'll definitely be bowl eligible in the worst case scenario.
Well, and that gives the opportunity if your best case is 9-3 in the regular season. It's going to depend on what other teams do, but that might be good enough to land in a Conference USA title game. You never know. And it's going to get you in a bowl game. So 9-3, regardless, has you an opportunity to get a 10-win season. And that always seems to be the benchmark. It just looks sexier than 9-3. 10-3 always looks way better for some reason. Not just a game better. It looks way better. But that's fair. I mean, if we're going to run down this schedule, and we can do this fairly quickly. I mean, UT Martin, you like to think, look, by the way, I'm just going to give a little bit of a not a tease. I'm going to give something away here because we haven't talked about the game yet. We're going to do that in the latter half of this episode. UT Martin's breaking in a brand new quarterback as well. So you got two teams that are going to be starting a new quarterback in week 1. So a lot of the questions that we talk about for Western Kentucky, UT Martin to a certain extent is going to have some of those same questions. And their quarterback that they expect to be the starter, or that I found to be listed as QB1 in the media guide at least, is a grad transfer from Tulane with very few statistics over the past 3 seasons. So given that I know that, I feel a lot better about where Western Kentucky matches up with UT Martin at a lot of positions. Going to Army is just scary to me. It just is, especially since it's on September 11th weekend. It's just one of those things that it's just, the dominoes don't seem to be lining up for a favorable matchup for me. Now, could you come out there with a win? Absolutely. Because, speed is the great equalizer. Turnovers are the great equalizer. And if you are outpacing Army in a lot of those positions and taking care of the ball, it doesn't really matter what's going on the rest of that weekend. For those 3 hours when the clock's ticking, you got to like your chances. You get a bye week, and then you got a couple of Big Ten games that you got to play. You get Indiana at home, and for some reason, I do feel good about that. I'm just hoping that it clicks. I'm not saying that it's a win, but I'm thinking you might be a really, really strong showing here, and you could sneak one out. Could the wheels come off, and could you turn the ball over 4 or 5 times? Yeah, you could. Could Indiana be really good and turn into be a college football playoff team this year? Yeah, who the hell knows? But I just kind of like that. Big game, home game. It's going to be a packed crowd. It will be. Western will do something special for that. It'll be a blackout game or something like that. They'll wear a red out or something. They'll do something. They will. Michigan State, I don't think I feel too good about that, even if it's a down year, even if they're not that great. They're just strong. Michigan State's always a tough team. Then you get into the conference schedule. And by this time, Western ought to be battle tested a little bit. They ought to know who they can count on, who's kind of not got the juice this year, who's going to have to play situational ball and that type of stuff. Then you get to welcome UTSA, a West Division favorite. They're going to be a tough team. This might be a home loss for the Tops, and that sucks to say, but UTSA could be really good. They got arguably the best player in the conference in running back Sincere McCormick. Arguably the best player in the conference. on either side of the ball and on special teams. So we'll see. Old Dominion, as we were talking before, is a game that you got after that. You travel to Norfolk and play Old Dominion. Old Dominion hasn't played damn ball game since 2019. They opted out. And if you folks recall, they hired a new coach, fired Bobby Wilder, and hired Ricky Rain, who was like I think maybe he was like offensive coordinator or like quarterbacks coach at Penn State.
Right.
And he's yet to coach a game, but he's been there over a year now. So you take that into account, and then you take into account the fact that Old Dominion and Western Kentucky games are always just freaking weird. Always the weird. How many years ago was that? I mean, what was this? Like 3 fourth down conversions and like 2 field goal attempts on some penalties or something like that, and the Tops get a weird win?
No, we lost.
Oh, you lost?
Old Dominion had 3 untimed downs in a row to beat us. It was Mike Sanford's last year, so yeah. What
a weird game that was. And then I remember maybe it was the year before that or 2 years before that, you guys had there was a fight in the middle of the game and something it's just Old Dominion Western games are just weird. Back-to-back road games follows you up, sends you down to Miami to play FIU. Who the heck knows what FIU is going to be? Every year it seems like they get some media talk like this is their year. They're going to turn it around this year. They're going to get over the hump, and they never get over the hump. So who knows? Welcome Charlotte for homecoming on a Halloween weekend. You got to like the chances there. Homecoming's always a good game. Charlotte is a team that Western plays fairly well most of the time, and homecoming's just homecoming, and it's Halloween, weird weekend, get a dub. Follow that up with Middle Tennessee State. November is the freaking most brutal month for Western. If they don't have it figured out by November, it's a wrap. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. It's a wrap. You got Middle Tennessee State in the 100 miles of hate. You get them at home, even though Middle is generally not on pace from what Middle was 3 or 4 years ago. It's still a rivalry game, and Western and Middle always play each other tough. So you see how the beginning of the gauntlet goes. You get Charlotte for homecoming, then Middle Tennessee State at home. Travel all the way out the following week to play Rice, and a team that should be much improved from a year ago. They were pretty good last year, and they should be even better this year. So always tough to win in Texas. Rice is no slouch now, and like Western Kentucky, they may have it figured out by November. They could be a sneaky, decent team. Then the last 2 games, you split. You got a home game with FAU, and then you go to Marshall on Thanksgiving week for the Moonshine Throwdown in what could decide the conference USA East division. I mean, dude, November, Middle Tennessee, Rice, FAU, Marshall. That's the meat and potatoes of the schedule right there. Luckily, it all comes at the end of the year. Unluckily, it all comes at the end of the year. So 9-3 is not bad. That's pretty good. If you can get to 10, that's great. But 6-6, I can see that. I can feel like that will happen all day long. Where do you think the biggest roadblocks are going to fall, like I just ran down the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I just was kind of penciling it in while you were talking. I've already got my wins and losses per se penciled in, kind of preseason with a lot of unknowns still out there. But I took the UTSA game. I mean, I literally called that a 50-50 game. It might be 51-49 if you say, hey, a good home crowd for us. It's going to be tough, though. I mean, they are coming in with a really good running game. But luckily, I think, coming off an Army game where they're going to be really just putting that option to work, and hopefully we use our experience. There's still some guys on the team that experienced that Clayton White just out Army just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I think we won like a 18-15 game or just kind of it was an ugly Army type game, but we out Armied Army. And I remember saying that in the post game recap of it. I expect UTSA to kind of lean heavily on that running back. Looking down, I really think homecoming's a win with Charlotte. The Middle Tennessee game, they have been subpar the last couple of years, even with a kind of an electric quarterback in Asher O'Hara that ended up going, I think, like out to California, JUCO or something crazy. They have turned over some people. I think they brought in a transfer quarterback from North Carolina State, maybe
Right.
a new offensive coordinator. But I just still think that they're a couple steps behind us. I think that's a favorable matchup for us. The Rice game, I would have penciled it as a kind of just I don't want to say an automatic win, but just a more likely win. Before we did the episode at the Roost, and just got to really dig into some of their personnel and just things they were lacking last year, pieces they were missing, people coming back and playing. That's going to be a tight contest. Especially anytime going to Texas, it's going to be tough. And then FAU and Marshall, they're in the season. Admittedly, I've already said I split the non-conference 2-2. All those coin flips that I just discussed, my W key got stuck on my keyboard because I put W's, and I'm being optimistic, and I know that.
Yeah.
There were some red goggles on. I can admit that. I am literally wearing a red hoodie right now. So I leaned to the left and said, "Hey, we're going to put one in that column." For most of those games. And then it basically got down to those last two, FAU Marshall. And I literally wrote 55-45 on those because that's the balance. And I think it could go either way, kind of like a seesaw for those two games. I think there's going to be a lot of change in expectation between now and then. But I think we split those games. I don't think we lose both. I don't think we win both. I think we split those games. And obviously, I'd like to be, victorious in the Marshall game, but I mean, they're tough. They're always tough. They've won 4 games in a row now versus us. So, but they do have their own question marks as far as new coach. Some pieces have left, pieces are coming back. So, nobody has just this surefire, hey, we're going to hit a home run this year. There's a lot of question marks for everybody, and it's really hard to look at last year in a COVID year. Games being canceled and rescheduled and short notice and players opting out, no fans. Last year it's just so hard to say, let's look back at last year's data and get a good feel for what's coming back this year, because it just wasn't a normal year. And even right now, it looks like we're, on track for a normal year, but there's still going to be protocols and COVID stuff, and players are going to get quarantined, coaches, who knows? And they may even just roll back, state guidelines to where there's not fans in the stands, and all that stuff is going to affect outcomes and gameplay. And you just don't know. So, several hurdles in there. Some games like the Charlotte homecoming game, the Middle Tennessee game, the Old Dominion game that I'm comfortable saying, hey, I think those are wins. So couple that with my split and non-conference, that's 5 on the board. And then you're looking at UTSA, FIU, Rice, FAU, Marshall as kind of my tightest coin flip games, I guess you could call it. Split those, you're at 7. Run the gauntlet, obviously you're doing really good. Lose all of them, you're stuck at 5. So really tough schedule. So many unknowns, not just for us, for everybody. But yeah, it's a fun schedule. It's a brutal schedule, and it's going to be fun to talk about all year and just kind of chart the roller coaster, and hopefully just that roller coaster is going up a hill, to the conference championship. But we both know better. There's going to be stumbles and disappointments, and dang, that one got away. That's going to happen. But just really excited, and the optimistic person in me says, hey, 9-3 is doable, but the realistic person, can see some of those games being lost, and see us go to 6-6, hopefully at the worst.
Well, you'd like to certainly get over the hump. I got to see some improvement over last year. Last year's 5-7. You got to see a little bit of improvement. So, I don't know that one win is enough, because I need that record to get flipped at a minimum. I need to see it get to 7-5, and I don't know that it will. I don't know that it won't. But I do know that a huge factor, and I bang this drum a lot. A huge factor in some of these things is how many people are sitting there watching a game. If you can go and fill the stadium, I mean, which Houchins fits? Where's it at? It's up here. 22,000 and something. 22,113.
38. Yeah.
Is capacity, and it should be packed out. Bowling Green, Kentucky is a large enough metro area that with the student enrollment and the locals, that place should be pretty packed game in and game out. I mean, I've been to several games there, and it's always a fun time. I mean, the stadium, there's really, nowhere you can't go to get a good view of the game. Number one, the atmosphere is really, really good. Western does a good job of trying to, keep the environment exciting, keep it captivating, and I know to a certain extent, a lot of that happens to revolve around what's going on the field. And if you don't I hope a lot of you guys cash in early and go, because if it starts getting fun and the points start getting hung on the board a lot, then I don't want wait and see fans. I'd like people to be there from the get-go and be like, yeah, I was on board lie to everybody. Yeah, I knew this was going to be like this from week one. That's why I'm here. Like, don't be wait and see guy, just show up. But let me ask you the tough question, Steve. Actually, it's the tough two questions. The first one's not so tough. Can Western win it all in 2021? Can they do that? Do they have enough star power to beat out everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely can. And it's going to be, it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to take winning more of those coin flips than they lose. It's going to take, the offense living up to its billing and branding as the high-flying, hottest show in town. It's going to take us running out some fireworks. But I think, we've said this just ad nauseum, all breakdown position group long, that we're just so deep at so many positions. And we even talked about on the offensive line side of things, where I think that's the biggest question mark. And there's a big youth movement there as far as new faces, people getting snaps, some quality reps for the first time in their careers. But so many guys there they were very highly rated recruits and have played behind some guys that were good to learn from. So it might be their first action, but they were going to get some hard hitters in practice and people that help them cut their teeth. And I really think with what we're expecting to see, we're going to be rotating so many bodies in it. If we were senior heavy, we're still going to be rotating some bodies in and seeing some new faces, fresh legs, because this tempo is just going to be tough. So yes, do we have what it takes to win it all? Absolutely. It's going to take, obviously winning a lot of games. And it's probably also going to take the help of somebody on our side, the east side, choking up, losing a game, in November that they're favored to win, that they're expecting to win. Marshall, choking up and losing a game that they're not supposed to lose. So, you never know what's going to happen, but it's going to take some skill. It's going to take some points and offensive bravado and just showing out. But it's also going to need the help of some people are going to have to lose some games that maybe they shouldn't lose. And maybe that means we have to win a couple games we shouldn't win. But we absolutely have the pieces and the experience and the coaches to win a ring this year. Absolutely.
Well, let me throw a little gasoline on your Marshall's got to choke a little bit comment, because we were talking about Western's November. Let's just for a second talk about Marshall's November, shall we? November 6th, travel to FAU. November 13th, home against UAB, which will probably most certainly be the 75-week game. November 20th, travel to Charlotte, who is always the team that gives Marshall the fits late in the season. And then, of course, closing out the season against Western Kentucky at home in the Moonshine Throwdown. So both of these teams' November is equally as brutal. Both get FAU in November. Marshall gets defending conference champion UAB and the team that they just cannot seem to figure out the past couple of years, Charlotte. So yeah, that scenario lends itself quite well to a choke happening, at least in a game or two that they should win. Will it happen? Nah, we're not going to get into that because who knows, but for Western fans that think, yeah, we're going to need a little help. Well, there's your help. And I haven't really looked at, I'll just look at it right now. Florida Atlantic. They've got they got Marshall, of course. Then they go to Old Dominion in November. They've got Western, of course, and then they close out against Middle Tennessee. So they've got the most favorable November of the three-headed monster out of the East. Best to beat FAU, I would say, Steve. Best to beat FAU because you're not probably going to get very much help from them late in the season. With that being said, the toughest question of all is, I'm going to put you on the spot. Will the Tops win the conference in 2021?
Oh, me. Yeah, the red glasses, the red hoodie, the chrome dome sitting beside me wants to say, absolutely, man. That dude.
Did you not hear 12-0?
12-0, baby. What you mean? The guys we got, we're going to win every ball game. I love that. I love Bailey Zappi already. Haven't seen him complete a pass wearing that chrome dome yet. Or the white dome. I guess it's going to be the white dome first.
Chill toppers, man. That's dope.
Chill, trademarked.
How'd you like that? I can't. How has nobody come up with that before? Jeez.
Here we are. You did it. Can we? Yes. We answered that. But do we win it? I think that's a big step to go from where we were last year. Replace a lot of bodies, a lot of faces, even coaches. Even knowing you bring in an influx of talent just across the board. Yeah. Offensively ridiculously deep. But there's just too many question marks, and other teams that have not as many question marks. When you have a UAB who's just been really good, whether you like him or not, Bill Clark has just done a really good job since that program came back alive. Marshall even turning over their coach. They're just always really good. They recruit really well. Huff has a great pedigree coming from Alabama. And you'd love to see him fall off, but there's talent there to be in that position. And FAU, I've said it all along. I've said since Willie was here, he's a great recruiter. He's going to bring talent to FAU. Now, whether he wins with that talent, it's not always the surefire thing. And we've seen that at his other stops, but there's just too many question marks, too many unknowns. I don't think we put it together and win the conference this year. We may even, put our foot in the door and be in that possibility going into those last couple weeks. We may control that destiny. And we may even get to the title game. But I just don't see us taking that, what would be in my eyes a leap from last year, 5-7, to leap into a conference championship. I think we'll take a step, and it'll be a good step. It'll be a growing step, and maybe growing on to next year, what to expect and what will happen. But I don't think we take a leap and realistically win the conference with just as many question marks as we have, and other strong, formidable teams in the conference that can have just as good a shot, if not better, to actually win that championship.
So you got to give me something. I'm gonna continue to put you on the spot here. You got to give me something. Okay, the Tops might not be a championship winning team this year. Are they going to rise out of the East and at least rep the East? And if that's not the case for you, where do they fall? Are they right there but lose it on a tiebreaker type thing? I mean, where does the Tops? Where do they fall? We talked about the ceiling for wins and losses. Where do they end in the standings? Are they repping the East, or are they falling just short because of a tiebreaker in your eyes?
I kind of just vaguely hit on it, but I think they're really going to come down to those last 2 weeks and control their destiny.
Okay.
Kind of all those teams are kind of playing each other those last 2-3 weeks of the season. It's going to really be who wins, who wins two of those games of FAU Marshall. You can't go 0-2 in those games. I'd love to say we're going to win it. Maybe we play spoiler for somebody else and knock somebody else out from winning it. But I think we end up second in the East, either to an FAU or Marshall. Hopefully we play spoiler to one of those teams, and whoever wins it is because we knocked the other one out of it with an additional loss. So I don't think we sneak into winning the East side and making it to a championship game, though I certainly do think it's possible, and I think we'll control that destiny. When we get to those final 2 weeks, I think it's just a big ask with as many question marks and new faces. Even though the expectation is there and the possibility is there, I don't think we take that leap. But I do think we can. I think a second place in the conference is respectable, and I think it would be not disappointing even to championship hungry and expecting fans. I think second is respectable. And I think we're going to be a handful, win or lose, come down to the last couple games of the season. It's going to be a handful in a dogfight.
Well, I like that. I mean, hey, you give me second in the East. That's what I needed. That's what I was hoping to get. I needed to get something that we could look back on at the end of the season and go, hey, man, you nailed it. You were right as rain. But second in the East would be pretty nice. Especially, look, if you go 2-0 against Florida Atlantic and Marshall, I cannot foresee a scenario where that does not get you to the top in the East. You'd have to really just fall off the planet against Middle Tennessee and Charlotte and FIU. And Old Dominion. How the hell would it happen if you end up beating Marshall and Florida Atlantic in back-to-back weeks and still don't rise out of the East? But second in the East would be pretty nice to go. You talk about a 5-7 team last year, to go all the way up and make as much noise as you need to make to get to second and be right there in the thick of things and maybe in position to win. If the right team wins or the right team loses, you get in there by default or by tiebreaker. Western could be in that position. There's been a different type of excitement leading into this season, than we've seen in even in a couple of years. We were excited when Tyson Helton got the job. We thought, okay, we're on to something different here. The Mike Sanford experiment just didn't really work out that well. They tried, it just didn't work out, and then Helton comes on board and we're like, all right, well, maybe we'll get back to something. And it was just slow building. It was slow moving. And, we're going to revisit those, early season FCS losses again. And it just took the wind right out of the sails of all the excitement that we had been talking about. And now we're building. You get a bowl win, you come back with a little bit of a disappointing season, but we've talked about it, COVID protocols and all that kind of stuff. So, whatever. But now 2021 is really the year to where if 2020 was normal, we might be talking about the Tops competing for a conference championship this year. And maybe they're a year away. Maybe they're 2 years away because you only get Zappy for 1 year. And then it's, you hit the reset button on the quarterback position again. But if enough things go right, they're going to be right there. If they make enough noise, they're right there. Too many people are looking past them. Too many people are just think, Western will always blow it. How quickly they forget that it wasn't that long ago that Western was the cream of this conference. And for our listeners that wear Kelly green, Western's won a conference title since after you did. As a matter of fact, they won 2. And you might have played for one last year, but you didn't win it. So Western still has the most recent conference championships between Western Kentucky and Marshall. Even though Marshall may have beaten Western in the last 4 years in a row, they've still got more conference championships than the Herd does. So to continually look past them is just, it's kind of lame. This is a different look. So look, Steve, it's game week, right? So let's take us a little break here. And when we come back on the other side of this break, we get to talk about an actual freaking game. Tops are welcoming in UT Martin, like I mentioned. So we're going to talk about it. Hang with us. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast.
I firmly believe we're going to go 12-0. We have a great team, both offense and defense. And, I have firm belief in, all the guys that we have on this team. And, I believe in them 100%. And, I don't think there's a single game on this schedule that we can't go out there and win.
It's game week in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Steve. UT Martin is coming to town. A 3-4 ball club from a year ago. UT Martin only played their conference slate, I guess. They played the OVC teams, finishing near the bottom in the conference. They, like you said during the break where we were just chatting there, they did score some points against their competition, even in losses. But like I mentioned in the season predictions portion of the episode, they're breaking in an entirely new quarterback. I think their quarterback last year was like a redshirt sophomore or something. I don't know where he went or whatever happened, but they got a new dude calling the shots now behind center. The game, of course, is going down September 2nd, this Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on ESPN Plus. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, get ESPN Plus, man. It's like $12 or something like that, and you get Disney and Hulu and ESPN Plus. So why not have it? I'm sure everybody's got about 40 streaming services. You might as well get one more. But anyway, Power Index loves the top, Steve. And not as high as I was hoping to see, but still pretty convincing. 88.3% chance to win for Western Kentucky. I didn't dive too deep to find a line. I didn't really see one. So if you know of a line, you can talk about that when you give me your lowdown. But look, it's time to shake the preseason FCS struggle for the herd, or the early season FCS struggle for, I almost said for the herd, for the tops. Yeah, you got one last year. Super sketchy win, but a win's a win, and who really gives a crap, right? Dub's a dub. This is the year that if you get that win and it's convincing, we can finally say that trend has been reversed. Tyson Helton has over that, and that's ancient history now. So about UT Martin, what do you think? Opening week game, late weeks, Thursday night, not the way you necessarily want to start the season. You'd like to have a nice Saturday game so you can ensure a full crowd, but Tops are doing a whiteout. Dope ass helmets, by the way. Those white helmets with the script top is pretty sweet. Going all the way out. Yeah, we mentioned that just a little bit in the season predictions portion. I coined that term, the chill toppers. I think that's pretty sweet. I cannot believe somebody hasn't come up with that before us. But that's pretty dope. Going all white. They're trying to get some hype around the game, trying to get the crowd there. So what do you think? I know you'll be in attendance. What do you think about this opening week game? How's it going to go down? And then we'll talk about some players to be on the lookout for UT Martin.
Well, the Achilles heel of the aforementioned previous 3 years of FCS struggles, 2 losses and a win, the Achilles heel has been letting the team hang around.
Yes.
When you start letting somebody hang around, they start getting a little juice. They start getting a little hyped up, amped up. All of a sudden, their sideline's bouncing, and yours is going, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. What do we need to do? And I fully anticipate that just kind of being really quiet in the first quarter. I expect Zappy, I expect Tinsley, I expect Burt, Stearns, and Ratzliff, and Cofield, and Carruthers, and who am I missing? Josh Simon. God, there's still 5 or 6 other ones I can name. I expect some points, some yards. I expect first quarter fireworks. I expect, Helton and Kitley, and let's take it all the way up. Todd Stewart. Todd Stewart is the guy applying the pressure. Hey, he wants the expectation to be points.
Yeah.
When those shakeups happen, it's Todd at the helm. We trust in Todd, and we trust in Helton now. He made those shakeups and brought in some people. So I expect the FCS struggles to come to an end this year. I'll dive more specifically into that when we get to the score prediction. But I think the first quarter is really going to, hush. We're going to say, oh, is Dowdy, is 12 back there again slinging the ball? Because I'm not going to be surprised to see a 14, 21, 28-point quarter go up. Some quick offense, 2, 3, 4 play drives, go on the length of the field, score, and get the ball back, do it again. Wash, rinse, repeat if you want. That's my expectation, and I've said that since kind of the band got together.
Yeah.
I expect this toy, I expect this car in the garage, I expect it to be ready to be shown off. And spring game, it was still rusty. Fall camp, it's coming together. There's a lot of repetitions and continuity and just people gelling. And it's time to turn the lights on and let that go to work, because these guys have definitely been working. I've heard such good things, from people that just say, hey, watch out for a couple of these guys, because we've got some dogs on the team. Again, I want to shout out Juwan Jones's dad, avid listener. Talked to him just last night. Just huge supporter of the podcast. Always kind of dropping little nuggets right over here in this little AirPod over here. Sliding in the DMs. Always checking with me. What have I heard? What has he heard? Let's compare notes. And really proud of his son. Kind of being the headliner of the whiteout coming up. But yeah, this game is going to be fun. And we haven't had a fun one at the house in a while. So I hope we bought some fireworks, because they're ready to get set off.
Well, here's how I see this, right? Ideally, I see it a lot like you're talking about. Just amped up energy from the Hilltopper sideline from the opening kick. And a lot of big plays, a lot of exciting down the field plays, a lot of long runs, a lot of, big hits on defense, like coming out on fire and then putting this game really away. Like you like to continually say, like these Brom era games, it's over at halftime, right? Because we still have a roster full of young guys who need to get meaningful snaps in a live action game. So if you can put this out of reach by halftime, you put 30 on the board by halftime, dude, it's a wrap. I can't see UT Martin coming back from 4 scores down in a half. I just can't see that. So they give you an opportunity to put it away early, get some of these guys some meaningful snaps at game speed, let them get hit a few times, and ease into the season so that they can be ready to roll for the next week against Army. I want to see some excitement. I don't want to see, run, pass, punt type stuff. I don't want to see that. I want to see I just want to see long downfield to play. I want to see the field stretched. I want to see the UT Martin defense have to stop all these weapons. You can't stop everybody on every play. You can't do it. There's too many guys that we've talked about in the receiving corps, tight end, running backs. We've talked about all these guys that can make all these plays, and they just can't. I just find it hard to believe that position for position, every guy that's going to line up across from one of these guys is going to be able to outplay that Western Kentucky player. It's an impossibility for me. So I just see this trend coming to a quick, swift, and abrupt end as far as the FCS struggles go. I mean, this is the one that's like, yeah, we thought Western Kentucky was going to be good, and yeah, it's UT Martin, so what can you really deduce from all that? But at the end of the day, you leave no doubt that you are the superior team on the field that day, and that's what Western needs to do. It has been a while. You've said that. You just need to supplant yourself as a solid football team. It doesn't matter if you're a contender at the end of the year when you're worried about proving who you are to not only yourselves, but to kind of everybody else in week 1. So let's talk about some of these players, Steve. We talked about new quarterback for UT Martin, number 9, a guy you're going to obviously want to pay attention to, at least in the media guide. Now, these guys are listed as, starters. So if it changes, it just changes, because I got no other resource to go off of other than what they put out in the media guide. Number 9, quarterback Keon Howard, 6'1", 215-pound grad transfer from Tulane. I told you in the first part of this episode, the stats aren't going to blow you away, and they just don't. 38 out of 76 for 522 yards and 3 touchdowns in 10 games over 3 seasons at Tulane. It ain't 10,000 passing yards, I'll put it that way, but we'll see. Running back number 23, Peyton Logan. He's a pretty good one. 5'8", 190-pound senior, 84 attempts last year, 353 yards. Good for 4.0 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns on the ground, but also 30 catches for 223 yards and a touchdown through the air. So kind of a dual threat runner, can catch the ball if needed. Was actually like the second, maybe third leading receiver on the team as far as reception, tied for second in receptions on the team. Wide receiver number 15, Colton Dowell, the 6'3", 215-pound redshirt junior, leads the team with 40 catches and 459 yards, good for 11.5 yards per catch, tied for receiving touchdowns with 4, leader in receptions and yards. And then number 2, big tight end, Rodney Williams, 6'4", 235-pound, also grad transfer, 30 catches, tied with Mr. Logan for second on the team, 327 yards, 10.9 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns, tied for the lead on the team. Offensively, they put up some numbers in 7 games, but the teams they were playing against probably were nowhere near as talented as they're going to face against Western Kentucky. There's no D'Angelo Malone lining up for Murray State. There's no Juwan Jones playing for whoever the hell else plays in the Ohio Valley Conference. I don't know, but those guys don't play for them. You know what I mean? As far as defense goes, the guys that are going to be tasked with slowing down what we think is going to be a very fast offense. Number 8, Ford, 6'3", 230-pound grad, 43 tackles, 23 solo, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 2 interceptions last year. Pretty good all-around linebacker, really. Another linebacker to look out for, number 31, Decarius Stevens, 6', 225-pound, also grad transfer, 29 tackles, 15 solo, 6 tackles for loss, leads the team in 2020. Now, keep in mind, they only played 7 games in 2020, so that's why the stats are a little low, and also 1 fumble recovery for Mr. Stevens. Then it goes straight to the secondary, so that tells you right there that the defensive line is not a super-duper strong point for this team. Linebackers in the secondary are leading the way in tackles and making all these impact plays. Number 17 plays rover, a position you really don't hear called that very much by too many teams. Jaquez Adkins, 5'9", 185-pound senior, 38 tackles last year, 19 of those solo, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. So pretty good all-around player for UT Martin. Strong safety, number 3, Takeem Young, 6'1", 200-pound grad transfer. See the theme there. 37 tackles, 20 of those solo, 3.5 tackles for loss, and 2 interceptions. And the last guy we're going to talk about is a defensive back, number 4, Jay Woods, 5'11", 185-pound, also grad transfer. 23 tackles last year, 18 solo, 2 tackles for loss, 9 passes defended. That's pretty solid. And 1 fumble recovery. Look, man, when your leading tacklers and impact players go linebacker, rover, safety, linebacker, defensive back, I don't know what that says to you, Steve, but it tells me that your running backs might have a really productive day. So let's say, based on what I just said, what do you think the Top's got to do to get a dub?
I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of disruption from our defensive front. Known entities and D'Angelo Malone, Juwan Jones. I mean, those guys are just going to be tough to keep in front of you. Then you got Jeremy Darvin and Darius Shipp that are going to be trying to clog the middle. And then even though our linebacking guys are maybe unproven, not a lot of stats, and Nicholas Daves, Ignat, Jaden Hunter, I'm really, 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 really happy. And that's God, we've left out 2 or 3 other P5 transfers just in that little list right there. But I mean, I really think we're going to have a lot of disruption at the line of scrimmage and in the backfield. I think that's going to kind of be the tone setter. We're going to get the ball back to that high-powered offense rather quickly, several times, create some turnovers, maybe score off those turnovers. But we're going to sell the tickets on the opposite side. Zappy, connections with some wide receivers, running backs are just going to be horses, rotating several guys in. I just think there's too much firepower. There's too much of a just man for man, pound for pound advantage. And maybe that's been the case the last several years, but there's been just some coaching and not putting them in position to succeed. Maybe some gap there, but I think some of those things have been addressed. And these guys are they're going to come out fired up, and it's going to be fun to watch, and absolutely I'll be in attendance. We're going to get off the bus. We're going to hang some points up early, often, And like you said earlier, we're going to get some young guys in there, get them some reps, leading into just a crucial set of non-conference games and set us up for conference play.
Well, look, I don't think the Tops really have to do anything particular. Like this has to happen in order for them to win the game. But of course, I've got bullet points to keys to victory for myself. And it's not really this week. It's not what has to happen more so than what I think this is what will happen to ensure a victory. Number one, for me, the defensive line is absolutely going to feast. I hope they don't eat lunch because they are going to be hungry when the whistle blows, and they are going to feast on this brand new quarterback against subpar offensive linemen in relation to the talent that the defensive line for Western Kentucky had. I think it's going to be pretty much a bloodbath. I mean, I hate to be that way, but you've got a bona fide NFL draft pick on one side. You've got one of the most, if not the most underrated defensive end on the other side of the Topper defensive line. And you've got Jeremy Darvin in the middle, along with whoever the fourth guy is that rises out of the group. It's just unfair. This is going to be one of the most unfair matchups that we see all season long as far as a game within the game for the Tops. The Topper defensive line against this UT Martin offensive line is going to be unfair, and it's going to be a feasting for the Tops. Number two for me is I think we're just going to see Western Kentucky come out of the gate, punch UT Martin in the nose, and let them bleed. And they're not going to take their foot off the gas until there's 30 points on the board. And then we'll be like, okay, maybe it's time to get some dudes out of the game. There's no need to risk it. We like where we're at. I just think we're going to see that, punch you in the mouth early, and then we're just going to see chunk play after chunk play until they decide that UT Martin is in fact KO'd. And speaking of being KO'd, I think we're going to see a knockout by halftime. It's done. That's what has to happen in order for this to just be the way week one's supposed to go. It's got to be a knockout at halftime so that we can come out in the second half and start to look forward to Army, try to get some of these young guys in, get some game speed reps, try some different things so we can see who can do what and try to set ourselves up for a better game at West Point. It's not going to be an easy one. So you might as well try to use this one as a opportunity to develop. And number four, you already said it, and I agree that this team's going to be hype, and they're going to stay hype. And in order for them to remain hype, they can't do it themselves. They need the entire crowd, everybody that's going to be there, to stay hype too. You're going to get the new look, fresh uniforms. You're going to get the season's finally here, all that excitement. You're going to see some big plays. You're going to see some big hits. So you can't just be hype when something cool happens. You got to stay hype the whole time. And those things I just believe will happen, leading to a pretty convincing win. I can't be so far as to say, yeah, they're going to put a 50 spot on the board. Could they? Yeah, sure. But I don't know that they have to do that or will do that without pulling the plug on a lot of these guys. So with that being said, Steve, who will be your 2021 week 1 200 proof player?
This may be a familiar name and one that gets repeated here. It might just kind of Sharpie this one in because I think a lot of the success and it's going to ride directly on the shoulders and the talent and the consistency of Bailey Zappi. I think he's going to want to come in and show out. Just like we keep saying, Kitley and Helton want to show off their new toy. That new toy's got a pretty nice arm on him, and a lot of friends that he brought with him, and a lot of guys that he's got to meet here in Bowling Green that are pretty talented. So I think Bailey Zappi is going to have a huge night. I've said it multiple times now, reminiscent of Mike White in 2016. I'm not going to be surprised if he comes out and throws for 400 plus yards. I think he's used to that. And I think that'll happen. I think we're going to put the ball in the air and try to put these guys away. And I'm not going to be surprised if he spreads the ball around and ends up with, 4 to 5 passing touchdowns. So give me Bailey Zappi. quarterback one.
QB1.
He's my guy.
How wild would that be if it comes out and it has individually a large game, huge game, 400 yards, 450 yards passing, but like no topper receiver cracks 100 yards just because there's that many weapons to spread the ball around. That would be kind of an insane stat. But look here, for all the shine and all the glimmer and all the familiarity that transferred in, and the OC's there, and the new quarterback is there, and the new receivers are there, and they've all played together at other places. I just need to see it for a game. So my 200 proof player is the guy that is the bona fide. Actually, it's two guys that are bona fide known entities that are the best in the game. Give me Juwan Jones. Give me D'Angelo Malone for week one. Then maybe we can start talking about offense once I see it a little bit, but they're still new to the game in BGKY, right? For all the hype and all the stats and all the touchdowns and yards and all that good stuff, it's still their first game in a topper uniform. Still the first time at Houchin Smith Stadium, right? And there's some guys that are really, really good that have been there and done that for a long time, and they've been there and done that as a tandem for a long time and been highly productive. So give me D'Angelo Malone, Juwan Jones, my dual 200 proof players for week one. Steve, it's score prediction time. I bet you're a little bit more lopsided on this one than I am, so lay it on me.
Yeah, I've kind of hinted at it a couple times. We've talked about Mike White 2016 several times. We've talked about strong opening quarter, just putting a lot of points on the board, putting some air on the ball, and just making this a no-doubter early. Maybe then in the second half we take the air out some, but at the same time we've got some running backs that are going to cut you up if we just start to put it in their gut. Carruthers, Cofield, Moses, Whittinghill, whoever you want to throw back there. I mean, good luck. And some pretty big boys up front. So my score prediction, you mentioned earlier the 50 piece. I don't think we quite get to the 50 piece. I'd love to see it though. But I went with a score prediction of 48 for the Hilltoppers, 14 for the UT Martin. And I think it's a pretty lopsided and hopefully something that comes to fruition because, we need that FCS monkey off our back.
Well, I concur. And yes, you are a little bit more lopsided than me. You also like the Tops to score a few more points than I like, but I still think it's a convincing win. I think it's a multiple score win. Give me the Toppers 38-10. And of course, most of that comes by halftime, if not all of that by halftime. And, you just kind of play second half ball to see what you can do. And it might be a lot of running and a lot of this and that and the other and this, that, but how is it that we've gone this whole podcast, the entire podcast, and we have yet to refer to UT Martin as their mascot? The disrespect is real, I guess, because I don't even know what it is. And I've been researching them all evening.
I think it's the Scouts.
Okay, I thought that was it too, but I wasn't going to throw it out there and just be wrong. So I've just been sticking with UT Martin. That's like some low-key disrespect that I didn't mean to be disrespectful about. I just didn't want to sound like more of an idiot than I normally do on this podcast. But yeah, give me 38-10, the Tops, rolling to a week one victory on a Thursday night in BGKY. Steve, final thoughts time. What do you got before we get the heck out of here and look forward to a game in a handful of days?
Oh man, finally game time, finally game week. We just know that everyone knows, not just Western fans, but everyone in the conference knows that the last couple of years have been a little bit more disappointing than what we want to see. We've talked just, about the changes just up and down the roster, coaching, players, quarterback, offensive coordinator. There's just been so much change of guard and so much of a raised expectation that this year is really set up and primed to be fun. Even if it turns out to be more of the 2014 Toppers than the 15-16 Toppers, that was still a pretty fun year. We were just a couple of games away from being a really special team and being in position to three-peat. Kind of with a subpar defense and an offense that was clicking. I really think, we're going to set a tone. and we're going to really get some guys, other than all these known names and entities that we've talked about just up and down the preview for each position group. I think we're going to get some younger guys some playing time. That's kind of what these type of games are meant for. Even in basketball, when you schedule that 1AA team, that conference, that Division II team, you expect to come out, blow them out, and get your young guys in. Get your starters out, keep them healthy, because there's a big chunk of games coming up that are tough and important. Do what you got to do. Starters come in, hang some points, put it away. Young guys get in there and earn some reps for the rest of the season. That's what this is about. That hasn't happened. We've been in nail biters 3 years in a row, and had to play starters down to the last play. But I think it's going to be fun. I expect a much different result. Obviously, my score prediction paints that. And then the rest of the year, it's just going to kind of be a week by week, go with the flow, see how this thing's coming together. And because there's question marks on both sides of every team and every matchup that we have this year. And that's kind of what makes it fun. The games aren't played on paper. They're going to be played on the field. And there's going to be so many variables between now and whenever we get to each game that's going to influence, what our thoughts and predictions and expectations of each game are. I expect to win each game. I want to win each game, but realistically, there's going to be some disappointment. But at the end of the day, I know these guys are busting their butt, working hard, and it's going to be fun. Win, lose, or draw, and that's for the whole season. Obviously, game one, I want to blow them out. If we lose that one, there's going to be a lot of uh-ohs out there. I don't see that happening, though. I think this year's going to be fun. And I'm definitely ready to kick it off and be at the Houch on Thursday, hoping for some great weather, fun atmosphere, good student presence, fun tailgating, and just an overall great time.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's just time. It's time. We've talked the talk, and we've broke down everything we can break down, and it's just time to see the car come out of the garage and get up to speed on the interstate, right? I mean, that's what you want to see. You want to see the red vet roll down the road. We've been talking about it for a long time, and that week is here, and your analogy about this team maybe being more like the 2014 team is kind of eerie to me, especially since you talk about, that was a team that made some waves, and had they not made the biggest wave, we might not be sitting here talking on this show right now, because this show may not exist. And that lines up to be something that happens again at the end of this season. You're going to travel to Huntington and play the Herd, and I wish you guys could see what I see when I say that stuff. This is the stuff that is just for Steve and I, because I get to see him. You just get to hear us, but he's like Dr. Evil over there, by the way, if you if you remember from Austin Powers. But yeah, that sets up the same way. You got Marshall to close out the season, and this could be a team that plays spoiler. They didn't play spoiler against Marshall to keep them out of the conference title game that year, but they did, of course, ruin that perfect season that they had going on. They were a ranked team and came into Jones C. Edwards Stadium and beat them. And that's just, not something that anybody really, probably outside of Bowling Green, or really maybe even outside of that locker room, thought was going to happen, because Marshall was really, really good that year. And if that's the way this sets up again, we're going to have a lot of fun throughout this season, because that'll be really cool to talk about. But it will also be equally cool to talk about the Tops just keep on winning and keep on rolling. And man, this offense is really fun to watch. And, we'll be singing those same things that I was singing 5 years ago. And I said, hey, this kind of stuff doesn't last forever. You guys better get on board now. And, people just kind of like, whatever, we plug in a new quarterback and we still score 40 a game. And now you see that I wasn't really full of crap. You don't really get to do that too often. So if it starts happening again this year, you want to be in early on that. So please buy some tickets, go to the game, get season tickets, whatever. Just go support these guys. They're working hard for you. They're trying to bring a conference title back to Bowling Green. They don't need you in the beginning of October going, is the basketball season yet? Like, that irks me to no end. I like basketball too, but Don't sell these guys short. They're busting their asses. 2-a-days and hot weather, and golly, at least show up and support them. Be a little loud. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one. This should be a no doubter early in the game. Often I'm really jealous of the fact that every year we roll around to week 1 and you get to talk about going to the house and watching a game. Trace gets to talk about going to the Joan and watching a game. And here I am sitting outside of Tampa Bay with nobody to cheer for. Like, I'm not going to USF to watch a game. That ain't happening. I got no ties to them. They're really not that good. So what would I, my teams are 1,000 miles away or however far Bowling Green is away from Tampa. I don't know how many miles it is. 1,000's a nice round number. So I have to cheer vicariously. I get to watch on Facebook. Wow, that's awesome. But anyway, it's game week. Get hyped, get ready, go spend some money, go watch the game. Glad hand, everybody. Drink some whatever your beverage of choice is. Toss a couple back, get loud, laugh, have some fun, cheer on the Tops, get a dub. Steve, let's get out of here this week. We'll come back, of course, later this weekend with a week 1 dub wrap up. We're just going to call it now. So go ahead and take us out, Steve. We'll get the heck out of here.
All right, go Mommy, go Tops.
Go Herd. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. Later.